morning. I'm Tamon Bradley. Coming up on WGN-TV Political Report.
We're all rallying around the Democratic Party of Illinois for the next 4 years around that chair to make sure that we get done what we need to do, which is elect Democrats up and down the ballot.
Illinois Democrats end weeks of infighting by naming a new party chair. But what will they be able to rebuild before November? Plus, the debate over how to strengthen Illinois' gun laws continues at the State House. Why some advocates think the key to public safety is enforcing the rules we already have. And on Capitol Hill, can Democrats deliver a long-awaited plan to fight inflation? We're taking you to Washington later this half hour. First, we turn to Springfield. On Saturday, J.B. Pritzker solidified his position at the top of the Democratic Party of Illinois. His pick to lead the party's political operation, State Representative Lisa Hernandez, won out over Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Kelly had served in the position since last spring, but she dropped her bid for a 4-year term on Friday after it was clear she didn't have enough votes to win. For weeks, the bitter battle split the party in two. But on Friday, Pritzker maintained his only issue with Kelly was the federal fundraising rules that limited her ability to bring in cash for candidates statewide.
We had a congresswoman who ran and won that spot in March of 2021, despite that impediment, and proved, unfortunately, over the last 16, 17 months that was in fact the case, and that trying to work around it wasn't working. I think all of us who care about the Democratic Party is to make sure that we have representation from all of the diverse constituencies, and making sure that we have leadership that can accomplish the goals that we want to set out to do, which is to beat Republicans and make sure that the party is doing what it needs to do.
After Saturday's vote, Pritzker released a statement reiterating his confidence in Hernandez and her ability to unite the party. The governor also thanked Robin Kelly, who rejected an offer for a smaller role within party leadership, focusing on federal offices only. Chicago Tribune political reporter Rick Pearson joins us to talk about the proxy battle. Rick, good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tamon.
Nice to see you not at Billy Goat, home comfortable there. Governor Pritzker backed Alderwoman Michelle Harris over Kelly last year, a year ago. There was little chance, Rick, he was going to lose this contest again. Describe what work Pritzker did behind the scenes to boot Kelly.
Well, obviously, this was a case of long-standing animosity towards losing that vote in March of last year. And in the meantime, Pritzker fielded candidates and backed them with money out of his unlimited war chest to run against already established State Central Committee members who had voted for Kelly the last time. He also enlisted, some of his traditional allies, the Illinois AFL-CIO, the state's largest umbrella organization for organized labor, even went so far as to enlist Personal PAC, the Abortion Rights Political Action Committee that he is heavily funded, to weigh in on, for the most part, what's normally an internecine kind of decision over who heads the Illinois Democratic Party, the choice of the 34 members of the Democratic State Central Committee who were elected in June in the primary.
Rick, how unusual was it for Personal PAC to get involved, given that both women who were candidates for this job, they support abortion rights?
Well, that's what makes it unusual. And again, as you touched on at the beginning of where Pritzker says it's about her federal fundraising role, that's the line that all of Pritzker allies backing Hernandez were using. It was that Kelly was limited because federal law says office holders have to follow federal law, which is much more limited than state law on how much money can be raised and who it can come from. And so that was the thing Personal PAC raised, that saying, look, we've got big elections coming up. Abortion rights is not secure in this country. We want to have a State Central or Committee chairman that can raise all the money that's possible to defend a woman's right to abortion.
It sure seems like PAC and committee contributions played a big role in all of this. They had worked out an arrangement where she wouldn't be involved. Obviously, she had a team and staff. Why do you think that wasn't good enough for Governor Pritzker?
Well, I think part of it is, one, he's still holding those feelings about getting defeated in March of last year. Two, it's normal that the governor, be it a Republican or Democrat, it really gets to pick the chairman of the party from which they're from. I mean, they are, in Pritzker's case, he is the de facto leader of the Democratic Party. He's the de facto chief fundraiser of the Democratic Party. And so this kind of consolidates his control over the Democratic Party in a way that he views he can shape it into what he sees as the party's goals.
Some of Kelly's supporters said this was outright racism. There were dog whistles. Do you think there's any lasting damage to the Democratic Party of Illinois going forward?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. State Representative Will Davis, who's a black member of the State Central Committee, said after the vote that he did not feel like this was any great unity moment for this is going to unite the party, but that certainly wasn't the way Will Davis saw it. And in fact, it seemed to reveal some kind of racial faults as Pritzker faces re-election, concerns about other issues with the Black Caucus, including funding in certain areas that the Black Caucus included in the state budget that they feel that Pritzker has really not moved forward on. And Davis said, you know, I hope we can all get to the point where we're all working to help all of our communities, including the Black community.
You know, obviously parties, families fight, have disputes. Why wasn't this just handled behind the scenes? Why did this become public?
Well, I mean, it's the nature of politics today, in part. I mean, yes, in the past there have been disputes. I mean, with Democrats, of course, you have the fact that we're coming off of a decades-long era of Mike Madigan being not only the House Speaker, really didn't matter. It was merely a fundraising appendage to raise money for House Democrats who would get elected in turn, elect him as House Speaker again. He never viewed it as anything to be involved necessarily with national politics, and in fact really kind of disdained that involvement. So with the election of Kelly, and frankly whoever was going to be the next chairman, first step one is to modernize the party. Kelly likes to talk about the fact when she came in, they didn't even have an email list of supporters. I mean, that's inconceivable in this day and age. And so now you're looking at post Mike Madigan, what is the direction of the party? Where is it going to go? And so I think that heightens somewhat the interest here in who has what say, who has what control over what direction the party goes and what is it going to do. Is it going to get involved and get out the vote efforts? Is it going to get involved in two critical Illinois Supreme Court races on the ballot this fall? That's why I think there's a lot of attention here and why it became very public.
Yeah, people aren't used to having a seat at the table, having say in the Democratic Party of Illinois. You mentioned national politics. This battle came on a week when national Democrats were touring Chicago, a potential candidate, a finalist for the Democratic National Convention in 2024. How awkward was it to have this fight going on while the party chairman, Jamie Harrison, and national Democrats were touring Chicago?
Well, Tamani, you were at that press conference welcoming the DNC folks, including the chairman. And if you remember, one of the things that Jamie Harrison said was that he wanted a turnkey operation, the city that wins this, a turnkey operation that everything works and works smoothly to promote the Democratic Party. And he didn't want any distractions. Well, if you want to talk about a big distraction, it's going to be about an inter-party squabble between the governor and the then state party chairman over what's the direction and who's going to be state party chairman. I think it was very embarrassing.
Yeah, it was a little tense. That body language was a bit strange there. Rick Pearson, thanks very much of the Chicago Tribune. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our first break. Coming up next on WGN-TV Political Report.
And every time a firearm is used in a crime, there is an immeasurable ripple effect on those impacted.
As activists look to Springfield for action on assault weapons, state lawmakers meet to talk about how to get more illegal guns off the streets. Paul Lisnick takes over from here. His conversation with State Representative LaShawn Ford is next.